Hey guys, no one is coming to save you, and the sooner you accept that, the sooner your life begins to change. Because most people are not actually suffering from reality. They are suffering from the story they keep telling themselves about how life should be, and that story is slowly destroying them. You wake up, you check your phone, you compare your life to someone else's highlight reel, and you feel behind. You feel like you are missing something, like everyone else figured it out except you. And you keep waiting for that moment when things finally click, when life becomes easier, when people finally understand you, when you feel at peace. But here is the truth that almost no one wants to hear. That moment is not coming. Not because life is unfair, but because you are chasing something that was never real to begin with. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They saw that most human pain does not come from events. It comes from expectations, from attachments, from illusions that we refuse to let go of. And the more tightly you hold on to these illusions, the more life feels like it is working against you. You think you are tired because life is hard, but you are tired because you are trying to control things that were never yours to control. You think you are anxious because the world is unpredictable, but you are anxious because you need certainty in a world that does not offer it. And this is where the shift begins. Because once you start seeing clearly, once you start questioning the beliefs you have been living by, everything changes. But it is not a comfortable change. It is not motivational. It is not the kind of truth that makes you feel better instantly. It is the kind of truth that strips away your excuses, your illusions, and leaves you face to face with reality. And that is exactly why most people avoid it. They distract themselves. They scroll. They stay busy. They surround themselves with noise. Because silence forces them to confront something deeper, something uncomfortable, something real. And if you have ever felt like you do not quite fit into the world around you, like you see things differently, like you question things that others just accept, then you are already closer to understanding this than most people. Because awareness is the first step, but awareness alone is not enough. You have to be willing to go further, to look at your life without filters, without excuses, without pretending that things will somehow fix themselves over time, because they won't. Time does not fix confusion. It only amplifies it, and the longer you delay facing reality, the heavier it becomes. So what you are about to hear is not meant to comfort you. It is meant to wake you up. These are not ideas to casually agree with and move on. These are truths that demand something from you. Truths that force you to rethink how you see yourself, how you see other people, and how you see the world. Because once you truly understand them, you cannot go back to the way you used to think. And that is the price of clarity. But it is also the beginning of freedom. The first truth is simple, but it will change the way you see everything. You are not in control, not of people, not of outcomes, not of how life unfolds. And yet, most of your stress comes from acting as if you are. You replay conversations in your head. You try to predict what others think about you. You worry about situations that have not even happened, and all of it feels important. All of it feels necessary, but it is not. It is just your mind trying to control what it cannot. And that is where the exhaustion begins. Because control is addictive. It gives you the illusion of safety, the illusion that if you just think a little harder, plan a little more, anticipate every possible outcome, you will finally feel at peace. But the opposite happens. The more you try to control, the more fragile you become, because now your peace depends on things outside of you, on people behaving the way you want, on circumstances going your way, on the world being predictable. And it never is. This is what Epictetus warned about when he said that some things are up to us and some things are not. And if you confuse the two, you will suffer, not because life is cruel, but because you are fighting a battle that cannot be won. And you already know this on some level. You have felt it before, that moment when something did not go as planned, when someone disappointed you, when life shifted in a way you did not expect, and you felt that resistance, that frustration, that quiet anger, not because of what happened, but because it was not supposed to happen that way. And that word "supposed" is where the problem begins. Because life does not follow your script. It does not ask for your permission. It does not care about your expectations. It simply unfolds. And the Stoics understood that the only place where you truly have power is in how you respond, not in what happens, but in what you choose to think about what happens. And that sounds simple, but it is not easy, because it requires letting go of something you have been holding onto your entire life. The need to control everything around you, and when you let that go, even a little, something shifts. You stop taking everything personally. You stop reacting to every small inconvenience. You stop wasting energy on things that were never yours to carry. And suddenly you realize that most of what used to bother you was never the problem. It was your attachment to how things should be. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it, because now every moment becomes a choice. You can either resist reality or you can work with it. You can either demand control or you can practice acceptance. And acceptance does not mean giving up. It means understanding the limits of your power and focusing it where it actually matters. On your thoughts, your actions, your character. Because that is where your freedom is. Not in controlling life, but in no longer needing to. The second truth is even more uncomfortable, because it attacks something you rely on every single day without realizing it. People are not thinking about you nearly as much as you believe, and that is not an insult. It is a release, but your mind does not see it that way at first. Your mind tells you that every glance, every comment, every silence means something about you. You walk into a room and assume people are judging you. You replay what you said hours ago, wondering if it sounded wrong. You hesitate before acting because you are afraid of how it will be perceived. And all of this feels real. It feels important. It feels like you are protecting yourself. But in reality, you are trapped inside an illusion. Because the truth is, everyone else is too busy thinking about themselves, their own problems, their own insecurities, their own fears, just like you. And this is where your energy is being drained, not by reality, but by the constant need to manage an image that exists mostly in your head. Seneca warned about this when he wrote about the danger of living for the approval of others. Because the moment your peace depends on someone else's opinion, you lose control over your own life. You become reactive. You adjust your behavior, your words, even your identity, just to fit into expectations that are constantly changing. And no matter how well you perform, it is never enough, because approval is unstable. It shifts, it disappears, it demands more. And this is why you feel that quiet tension in your day-to-day life, that subtle pressure to be liked, to be accepted, to not stand out too much, but also not fall behind. And it keeps you stuck. It keeps you small, because you are not acting based on what is true to you. You are acting based on what you think others might think. And that is a game you cannot win, because you are trying to control something that is not yours. Other people's thoughts, other people's judgments, other people's perceptions. And just like before, this is outside your control. No matter how careful you are, no matter how much you adjust, someone will misunderstand you, someone will not like you, someone will judge you. And once you truly accept that, something shifts again, not in the world, but in you. Because now you are no longer performing for an invisible audience. You are no longer filtering every action through the fear of judgment. You begin to move differently, speak differently, think differently. Not because you stopped caring completely, but because you understand where your responsibility ends. Your responsibility is not to control how others see you. It is to act with clarity, with integrity, with intention, and then let the rest go. And that is where a different kind of confidence begins to form. Not the loud kind, not the kind that seeks attention, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing that you are no longer dependent on external validation to feel secure. And this is not something that happens overnight, because you have been conditioned for years to seek approval, to measure your worth through other people's reactions. But once you start questioning that pattern, once you start catching yourself in those moments where you hesitate, where you overthink, where you try to adjust yourself to fit expectations, you begin to take your power back, little by little, moment by moment. And what you start to realize is that the freedom you were looking for was never in controlling how others see you. It was in no longer needing them to define you at all. The third truth is the one most people spend their entire lives avoiding, because it forces you to confront something deeper than control or validation. You will lose everything, not just the things you worry about, but the things you love, the things you depend on, the things you assume will always be there, your routines, your comfort, your relationships, even the version of yourself that you are trying so hard to protect right now. And your first reaction to this is resistance, because your mind immediately says that this is negative, that this is something to push away, something to not think about. But the Stoics did the opposite. They leaned into it. They trained themselves to see clearly what most people refuse to acknowledge. Not to become pessimistic, but to become free. Because the more you deny the temporary nature of things, the more fragile you become when they change. And they will change. That is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. And you have already experienced this in small ways. Plans that did not work out, people who drifted away, opportunities that disappeared. And each time it happened, it felt like something was taken from you, like life was unfair. But what actually hurt was not just the loss. It was your expectation that it should not have happened. Your belief that things were supposed to stay the same. And that belief is what creates the deepest kind of attachment. The kind that makes you hold on tighter the more you feel things slipping away. But holding on does not stop change. It only increases the pain when it arrives. This is why the Stoics practiced something that feels counterintuitive at first. They imagined loss before it happened, not in a dramatic or fearful way, but in a clear and grounded way, reminding themselves that everything they have is temporary, not to make themselves anxious, but to remove the illusion of permanence. Because once you stop assuming that things will last forever, you begin to appreciate them differently. You stop taking moments for granted. You become more present, more aware, more intentional, and at the same time you become less dependent, less attached, less shaken when things inevitably shift. And this is where a deeper kind of strength begins to form. Not the strength of holding on, but the strength of letting go without losing yourself, because your stability is no longer tied to what you have. It is tied to how you think, how you respond, how you choose to carry yourself through change. And this does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become distant or disconnected. It means you care without clinging. You appreciate without assuming ownership. You understand that everything in your life is something you experience, not something you control or possess. And that shift changes everything, because now, loss does not define you. It does not break you. It does not leave you empty. It becomes part of the natural flow of life. Something you can face without collapsing. Something you can move through without losing your direction. And the more you internalize this, the more you start to see that the real problem was never loss itself. It was the illusion that you could avoid it. And once that illusion is gone, you are no longer living in fear of change. You are prepared for it, grounded in it, and no longer controlled by it. The fourth truth is where most people quietly lose control of their lives without even realizing it. Your emotions are not the problem. Your interpretation of them is. And this is the subtle trap that keeps you stuck, because you believe that what you feel is a direct reflection of reality. You feel disrespected, so you assume you were disrespected. You feel anxious, so you assume something is wrong. You feel uncomfortable, so you assume you should avoid the situation. And this automatic belief system runs your life in the background, shaping your decisions, your reactions, your identity. But the Stoics saw something different. They understood that between what happens and how you feel, there is a layer that most people never question. Your judgment, your interpretation, your internal narrative. And that is where your real power is. Epictetus made this clear when he said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And once you truly understand this, you begin to see how often your mind creates unnecessary suffering. You receive a short message from someone and immediately assume they are upset with you. You make a small mistake and turn it into a story about your own inadequacy. You face a challenge and interpret it as a threat instead of an opportunity. And each time this happens, your emotional reaction feels real. It feels justified, but it is built on an interpretation that you accepted without questioning. And this is where the discipline begins, not in suppressing emotions, not in pretending you do not feel anything, but in slowing down enough to examine what is happening inside your mind. before you react to it. Because the first impression is rarely the truth. It is just your mind trying to make sense of things quickly, often based on fear, habit, or past experiences. And if you accept every impression as reality, you become reactive. You become controlled by every external trigger, every comment, every situation. But if you learn to pause, even for a moment, you create space. And in that space, you regain control. You can ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this just my interpretation? And that question alone can change everything, because now you are no longer a passive receiver of your emotions. You are an active participant in how they are formed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this constantly, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And that strength is not about being emotionless, it is about being aware. It is about recognizing that your feelings are signals, not commands. They are information, not instructions. And once you start treating them that way, you stop being pulled in every direction by temporary states. You stop overreacting to things that do not deserve your energy. You stop building stories that make your life heavier than it needs to be. And instead, you begin to respond with clarity, with intention, with control. And this is not something that happens instantly, because your mind has been trained for years to react automatically, to jump to conclusions, to protect you from perceived threats. But most of those threats are not real. They are interpretations. And the more you question them, the weaker they become. Until one day you notice something different. Situations that used to trigger you no longer have the same effect. Thoughts that used to spiral now pass more quickly. Emotions that used to control you now feel manageable. And that is when you realize that the problem was never what you felt. It was how quickly you believed it without question. The next truth is one that quietly shapes the direction of your entire life. Even when you think you are making rational choices, comfort is dangerous. Not because comfort itself is bad, but because it slowly trains you to avoid growth, to avoid challenge, to avoid anything that requires effort. And over time, this avoidance becomes your default state. You start choosing what feels easy instead of what is right. You delay difficult conversations. You stay in familiar routines even when they no longer serve you. You tell yourself that you will take action later, when you feel ready, when the timing is better, when you have more clarity. But that moment rarely comes, because comfort does not prepare you for action. It conditions you to stay where you are. And this is how stagnation begins, not through dramatic failure, but through small, repeated decisions to avoid discomfort. And at first it feels harmless, even reasonable. You are just trying to protect your energy, to reduce stress, to stay safe. But over time, you begin to notice something else, a quiet dissatisfaction, a sense that you are capable of more but not acting on it, a gap between who you are and who you could become. And that gap creates tension, not the kind that pushes you forward, but the kind that slowly drains your confidence. Because deep down, you know you are avoiding something. And the Stoics understood this pattern long before modern psychology gave it a name. They did not seek comfort. They trained themselves to face discomfort voluntarily, not to suffer, but to build resilience, to reduce fear, to prove to themselves that they could handle more than they thought. Seneca practiced periods of voluntary discomfort, wearing simple clothing, eating basic food, reminding himself that he did not need luxury to function, and, more importantly, that losing comfort was not the end of the world, because once you remove the fear of discomfort, you remove one of the biggest barriers to action. You stop hesitating. You stop overprotecting yourself. You stop waiting for ideal conditions, and you begin to move, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels uncertain. And this is where real growth begins, not in the absence of discomfort, but in your willingness to face it without retreating. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And that idea flips everything you have been taught. Instead of seeing difficulty as something to avoid, you begin to see it as the path itself, the thing that shapes you, strengthens you, refines you. And this does not mean you need to seek out extreme challenges or make your life harder than it needs to be. It means you stop running from the small moments that require effort, the uncomfortable conversations, the disciplined routines, the decisions that demand responsibility, because those moments are constantly available to you. And each time you choose discomfort over avoidance, you reinforce a different identity. Someone who acts despite resistance, someone who does not wait for motivation, someone who understands that growth and comfort rarely exist in the same place. And as you begin to shift in this way, something else changes. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. Things that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Things that once stopped you now barely slow you down. And this is how you build internal strength, not through sudden transformation, but through consistent exposure to what you used to avoid until it no longer controls you. And what you eventually realize is that comfort was never the goal. It was just a temporary state. And if you build your life around it, you will always feel limited. But if you learn to move beyond it, you gain access to something far more valuable: the ability to act, to grow, to adapt, regardless of how you feel in the moment. The next truth is the one that quietly erases your life while you are busy thinking you still have time. Time is not something you have. It is something that is being taken from you every single day. And most people live as if there is an unlimited supply of it. You tell yourself you will start later. You will fix things later. You will become the person you want to be later. But later is not a real place. It is a convenient illusion that allows you to delay action without feeling immediate consequences. And this is exactly how years disappear without you noticing. Not through dramatic events, but through small delays. Repeated over and over again. You scroll a little longer. You postpone a decision. You avoid something that feels uncomfortable. And each time it feels insignificant. But those moments add up. They compound. They shape the direction of your life. And before you realize it, you are further away from where you wanted to be. Not because you lacked ability, but because you assumed you had more time than you actually do. Seneca wrote about this with brutal clarity, saying that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And this is the part most people do not want to face, because it removes the comfort of blame. It is easier to say that life is busy, that circumstances are difficult, that opportunities are limited. But when you look honestly, you begin to see how much of your time is spent on things that do not matter, things that do not move you forward, things that you will not even remember in a year, and yet you give them your attention, your energy, your focus, as if they are valuable. And this is where the real loss happens. Not in the future, but in the present moment that you are not fully using. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. And this was not meant to create fear. It was meant to create clarity. Because when you understand that your time is limited, your priorities become sharper. You stop tolerating things that drain you. You stop delaying what matters. You stop living as if you can always make up for lost time later. Because you cannot. Once a moment is gone, it is gone. And no amount of planning or regret can bring it back. And this realization can feel uncomfortable at first, because it removes the illusion of endless chances. But it also gives you something far more valuable, urgency with direction, not panic, but focus, not anxiety, but awareness. You begin to see your days differently, not as something to get through, but as something to use intentionally. You start asking better questions. Is this worth my time? Is this moving me forward? Is this aligned with who I want to become? And those questions begin to shape your behavior in ways that are subtle but powerful. You waste less time on things that do not matter. You become more present in the things that do. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and start using the one you already have. And over time, this changes everything. Not because you suddenly become perfect or productive every second, but because you are no longer careless with the most valuable resource you have. And what you begin to understand is that time was never the problem. The problem was how casually you treated it, how easily you gave it away, how often you assumed you would have more of it later. And once that assumption is gone, your entire approach to life begins to shift. Because now you are not just living, you are choosing how to spend something that you can never get back. The next truth is the one that most people misunderstand for their entire lives. You believe that suffering comes from what happens to you, but in reality, most of your suffering comes from how you interpret what happens to you. And this is not just a philosophical idea. It is something you experience every single day without noticing. Two people can go through the exact same situation and walk away with completely different emotional outcomes. One sees it as a setback. The other sees it as a lesson. One feels defeated. The other feels challenged. And the difference is not in the event itself. It is in the meaning they assign to it. And that meaning is not fixed. It is chosen, even if it does not feel that way at first. Because your mind is constantly creating narratives, labeling experiences, deciding what something means before you even have time to question it. And once that label is attached, your emotions follow automatically. You lose an opportunity and your mind says this is failure. You face criticism and your mind says this is rejection. You encounter difficulty and your mind says this is unfair. And each of those interpretations creates a different emotional response. But none of them are the event itself. They are just your judgment about it. And this is where Epictetus draws a clear line, reminding you that it is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about those events. And once you begin to understand this, you start to see how much unnecessary weight you have been carrying, not because life is heavy, but because your interpretations make it heavier than it needs to be. And this does not mean you deny reality or pretend that everything is positive. It means you recognize that there is always a space between what happens and how you choose to respond to it. And in that space, you have the ability to change the meaning, to shift your perspective, to decide whether something will weaken you or strengthen you. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, reminding himself to remove the judgment and observe things as they are, not as his emotions first presented them. Because once you strip away the added narrative, most situations become more manageable, more neutral, more within your control. And this is where a deeper level of mental discipline begins to form, not by controlling the outside world, but by refining the way you interpret it. You start catching your thoughts in real time, noticing when you are exaggerating, when you are assuming the worst, when you are turning a temporary situation into a permanent story about yourself. And instead of immediately believing those thoughts, you question them. You step back. You ask, is this the only way to see this? Or is there another interpretation that is more useful, more accurate, more aligned with reality? And this simple shift begins to change how you experience your life. Challenges feel less overwhelming. Setbacks feel less personal. Uncertainty feels less threatening because you are no longer trapped inside a single narrative. You are actively shaping it, and over time this builds a kind of internal stability that is not dependent on external conditions. Because you understand that while you cannot control what happens, you can always influence what it means to you. And that influence is enough to change everything. Because once you take responsibility for your interpretations, you stop being a passive victim of circumstance and become an active participant in your own experience. And that is where true resilience begins to take root, not in avoiding difficulty, but in learning how to see it clearly without immediately turning it into suffering. The final truth is the one that ties everything together, and it is the one that most people spend their entire lives trying to ignore. You are going to die, not someday in an abstract sense, but at some unknown point that is steadily getting closer. And your mind resists this immediately. It tries to push it away, to label it as negative, as something unnecessary to think about. But the Stoics did the opposite. They brought this truth to the front of their awareness, not to create fear, but to create clarity. Because when you truly understand that your time is limited, everything that once seemed confusing begins to sharpen. Distractions lose their grip. Trivial concerns lose their weight. And what actually matters becomes impossible to ignore. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." And that was not a dramatic statement. It was a practical tool, a way to cut through illusion. Because when you act as if you have unlimited time, you tolerate things you should not tolerate. You delay things you know you should do. You stay in patterns that slowly drain you. And you justify it by telling yourself that you will change later. But when you remove that assumption, when you realize that later is not guaranteed, your decisions begin to shift. You become more honest with yourself. You stop pretending that you have endless chances to become who you want to be. And you start asking a different kind of question. If this day were one of my last, would I still be living like this? And that question is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront the gap between how you are living and how you know you could be living. It exposes the habits you have been avoiding, the conversations you have been postponing, the actions you have been delaying, and it removes the safety net of time that you have been relying on. But at the same time, it gives you something far more valuable: direction. Because once you accept the reality of your own mortality, your priorities stop being vague. They become precise. You stop chasing things that do not matter. You stop investing energy into things that do not align with your values. You stop waiting for permission to act because you understand that the window you have is limited, and that limitation is not something to fear. It is something that gives your life meaning. Seneca said that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And when you combine that understanding with the awareness of your own mortality, it creates a powerful shift. You begin to see your time as something sacred, something that should be used with intention, not something to be casually spent. And this changes how you move through your life. You become more present, more deliberate, more focused on what truly matters. Not because you are forcing yourself, but because you no longer have the illusion that you can afford not to be. And this is where everything you have been learning begins to come together. Control what is yours to control. Let go of what is not. Stop seeking validation from others. Stop fearing discomfort. Stop wasting time. Stop believing every thought that crosses your mind, and remember that everything is temporary, including you. And once you accept that fully, not just intellectually, but deeply, your entire relationship with life changes. You are no longer drifting. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing, moment by moment, how you think, how you act, how you live. And that is the closest thing to real freedom that you will ever find. If something in this message stayed with you, even quietly, then let it stay a little longer. Not as pressure, not as something you must immediately act on, but as a reminder that you are capable of living with more clarity, more intention, and more awareness than you might have believed. Change does not always begin with big decisions. Sometimes it begins with a small shift in how you see things, a moment where you pause instead of react, where you choose differently, even in a subtle way. And those small moments, repeated over time, have the power to reshape your life in ways that feel natural, not forced. So take what resonates with you and carry it into your day, into your thoughts, into the way you respond to the world around you. And if you feel that this perspective could help someone else, someone who might be struggling quietly, you can share it with them. Sometimes a single idea, heard at the right moment, can make more difference than we expect. And if you would like to continue exploring ideas like this, you can stay connected here. Channel Subcribble, not out of obligation, but out of intention, as a space where you return to reflect, to reset, and to grow at your own pace. And as you move forward, remember to be patient with yourself. Growth is not a straight line. It is a process of learning, adjusting, and continuing. And wherever you are right now, that is where your path begins. So move with awareness, act with intention, and may you find a sense of calm within yourself, a steady clarity in your mind, and a quiet strength that stays with you through whatever comes. Wishing you peace, balance, and a life that feels truly your own. See you next video.